This is 5 Live Formula One with Jack Nichols.
A very good afternoon. Welcome to our coverage of Free Practice 1 ahead of the Sao Paulo Grand Prix this weekend. Here on 5 Live, we're on Sports Extra across the weekend and the BBC Sport website as well. Thank you for joining us wherever you are joining us from. We've got an hour of running and it's a sprint weekend. So we have an hour of running now. Then we've got qualifying a little bit later on this afternoon. And then we've got the sprint tomorrow afternoon, evening, and then the Grand Prix itself coming up on Sunday. So something a little bit different, but I'm sure we will have very similar protagonists up at the front. Alongside me this weekend is the Williams reserve driver Jack Aitken and the BBC's chief F1 writer Andrew Benson. And Jack, Sao Paulo, Interlagos, bit of a classic.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been on the calendar for quite some time, and certainly when I was growing up, it was one of the races that it has quite a distinct character to it, doesn't it? You know, being set in the hills of Sao Paulo, you're not going to mistake it for anywhere else, and the fans always bring quite an energetic atmosphere. It's I think it's one of the circuits that the drivers really enjoy going to.
Shorter now, Andrew Benson, than in the past.
Yeah, in its first iteration in the 70s, it was 5 miles long, and they cut it in half when the Brazilian Grand Prix went to Rio de Janeiro for a few years in the late 70s.
What was the track called?
Jacarepaguá.
Well done, you passed the test.
Or Jacarepaguá, actually, given that it's Portuguese, not Spanish. Anyway, when it returned into Lagos in 1990, they basically cut it in half, which is a bit of a shame because the first corner back in the day was something else. It was like a sort of banked oval corner all in one go, a bit like Daytona Speedway or something like that, although of course in a Formula 1 car these days it will be absolutely flat out. But the new track is still a challenge. It's ups and downs, it's got banked corners, corners like nowhere else, some good overtaking and a bit bumpy, and the weather's unpredictable, and Sao Paulo is a steamy, atmospheric place where you've got to be on your toes, and the same applies for the track.
Yeah, absolutely true. That the first corner sort of still exists in the runoff area down at the center S's at the first chicane. As you say, weather-wise, we're expecting some weather over the course of the weekend, but at the moment the risk of rain for first practice is 0%. Later on this afternoon is when it's meant to get a bit rainy and stormy, so whether that hits in time for qualifying, we will wait and see. A reminder that Max Verstappen has already won the World Championship. The fight is on for second place. Sergio Perez second at the moment for Red Bull, but only 5 points ahead of Charles Leclerc. Then it's a good chunk of 44 points back to George Russell in fourth position. So it's those two that are fighting it out for the second place in the championship. Red Bull have wrapped up the Constructors' Championship as well, but we're expecting Ferrari to be a little more on the pace here than they were in Mexico City. So that's going to be the big question, Jack, is whether Ferrari can take the fight to Red Bull as they've been close to doing on occasions at certain points this year.
Yeah, about as close as anyone could hope to be, it seems, this year. Yeah, like you say, a bit of a shocker last time out. It's always nice to be able to finish on a high, just from a team morale perspective, if nothing else, and go into winter with your head's held a little bit higher. So, you know, not many chances left in the season. Obviously 2 races this weekend, although some purists may say only one Grand Prix. Let's see if they can take the fight and be a bit more have a bit more of a positive weekend.
No Free Practice 1 drivers for this weekend because we're going straight into qualifying, so everybody has got to do this first free practice basically, because then qualifying's coming up later on. We will have a bit of an oddity where Logan Sargent will be in the Williams tomorrow during free practice 3 before the sprint, filling in for which is free practice 2, of course, but in the slot where free practice 3 would be.
There is the first mistake.
I haven't even made it 5 minutes. So that'll be a bit of an odd one, replacing Alex Albon, who'll be then the first running he'll do in the Grand Prix on Saturday will be a sprint, will be a race start. So that'll be he'll be fine, but it'll be an interesting one.
Yeah, he's a good driver, isn't he, Alex? He'll be all right. Yeah, it's just it's all for those of you who aren't being kept up to speed with Logan Sargent's latest adventures. It's all in the bid to try and get that extra super license point to make his life that little bit easier. He has 1 race left in his season in the F2 finale at Abu Dhabi. where he's hoping to get enough points for his super license, but doing these extra kilometres in practice are going to help him along the way with one extra point.
He has to finish 5th, I believe, in Abu Dhabi, is that right?
If he gets this extra point with these extra kilometres,
Yeah,
yes.
okay.
Otherwise it would have been... No, sorry. He has to finish 6th with that extra point. If he doesn't get this extra point, it would have to be 5th.
Okay. And are you waiting for him not to get the point, Jack?
No, not at all. Not at all. It's I fully support Logan in his endeavours. He's more than capable. I'm sure he'll do it absolutely no problem.
Cars heading out on circuit then, for those of you wanting to sync up. We've got 59 minutes and 23, 22, 21, 20 seconds left on the clock, and immediately a lot of the field going out on the hard tyres. Magnussen, Ocon, Sainz, Schumacher, Norris, Gasly all leaving on the hard tyres. Alonso joining that list as well. Lando Norris is racing. You may have seen that Nick de Vries had a precautionary seat fit at McLaren yesterday in case Lando Norris couldn't race, because Norris missed the media stuff yesterday because he was not feeling too good and was resting up in his hotel room, but he is out and about. What impressed me the most was de Vries had a set of McLaren overalls, and I don't know if I didn't see whether they had his name on or anything, or if they were custom, or if they were just some spare ones, or a set of Landos. I don't know how it works that last minute.
I dare say he would have been squeezing into a set of Landos. I would be very surprised if they just had a spare set lying around with his name on them. Although with Nick, you never know. He seems to be everywhere these days. So.
He's got one for every team. Just he sorts it out themselves. He buys them himself, doesn't he? And just so if any team needs him,
he just turns up. I'm here, I'm ready.
Like that guy who got onto the pit wall in Jerez that one year by just coming in full McLaren merch and just confidently walking to the pit wall, and then everyone at McLaren was like, who's this guy? What? Confidence will get you everywhere.
It's a new hire. Yeah, there you go.
And that confidence will get you everywhere has kind of summed up Nick de Vries getting into F1, hasn't it? But fair play. But he won't be racing for McLaren, doesn't seem, this weekend. So as I say, only Albon and Russell in the pits. Stroll has done an in-store lap and returned to the pits, but others are cracking straight on. Pretty short lap in into Lagos as well, so the lap times will come in thick and fast. And already Kevin Magnussen, for example, coming around the outside of the two Red Bulls, also Sebastian Vettel, and already there's a bit of traffic going on at Junsao, the final corner, as Verstappen got in the way a little bit of Valtteri Bottas. So there's plenty of running in the early stages. Magnussen's first lap is a 1 minute 16.443, so that's the first lap time for whatever it's worth. Bottas beats that by a couple of tenths of a second, and Verstappen starts his lap now on the hard tyre, onto the brakes, down into the Senna S, followed around by his teammate Sergio Perez as they then descend through the downhill left and right through Curva do Sol and down towards Basido do Lago at turn 4, where Verstappen and Hamilton had all of their shenanigans last year. Perez is running quite close to the back of Verstappen. Oh, Verstappen's gone in. He's taken his line from last season, goes in too deep into turn 4, and that is his lap done. Looks as though Perez was quite close though starting that lap. Maybe slipstream thoughts.
Yeah, it was all a bit awkward when they were opening up the laps. As you say, Bottas was coming through. Verstappen had to lift after he'd gone through the last corner. Usually you want to get a really nice exit from the last corner to open up with the most speed possible across the line. And Max actually just lifted and let him go, and then got back on the gas. It is quite a short run from the timing line to the first corner here anyway, so that's maybe why he wasn't bothered, and the consequence of that was Checo being right on his bumper.
Hamilton goes to the top of the times on a 1 minute 15.018, less than a tenth quicker than Kevin Magnussen. Hamilton on the medium tyres, Magnussen on the hard tyres. And we're just having a look again at Verstappen braking at about 70 metres and the car just not turning.
Yeah, he also had quite a lot of understeer coming through turn 2, so the signs were there quite early on in the lap that maybe his outlap wasn't quite as quick as he would have liked, didn't quite get enough temperature into those front tyres.
Perez on the hards does a 1 minute 14.6, 4 tenths quicker than Hamilton. Norris is now coming up the hill into turns 6 and 7 in that McLaren. Still Albon in the pits, the only driver not to have left the pit lane yet. Both the Aston Martins did an install lap, but Albon in the pit lane, so we'll see if we can get to the bottom of that, if there's any issue or not. Gasly's just jumped up into 4th place. Amit points out on hashtag BBC F1 that Jacques Rapagua got turned into the Olympic Village and venues for the 2016 Rio Olympics. And I tried to, because I went out for the Olympics, and I tried to find the old track, but they couldn't. There's nothing there at all. So I took a picture of what I thought was the start-finish straight based on the mountains in the background, because it's all quite identifiable, all the mountains.
Yes.
You could kind of work out where you were by looking at the background. So
yeah, it had those kind of like mini sugar loaves everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. And Amit says, I'm sure there's been a discussion over the years on F1 and Olympic venues. I'm not sure if we've really got stuck into that too much. Obviously, there's Sochi. Well, there was Sochi. And the Spanish Olympic Games of 1992 are alongside the old start-finish straight of, oh my goodness, Montjuic. And I don't know if there's any more Olympic venue race circuits. TBD. Well, there are in Formula E, but we're not here to talk about that. Verstappen goes to the top of the times. 1 minute 14.104, identical lap time to Valtteri Bottas. Verstappen on the hards, Bottas on the mediums. Perez third quickest for Red Bull. Fourth is Ocon, fifth is Zhou, sixth is Alonso. Russell and Hamilton are seventh and eighth, both on their medium tyres, about 9/10 of a second away from Verstappen. Magnussen 9th, Gasly 10th, Schumacher, Leclerc, Sainz, Latifi, Tsunoda the top 15, and then Ricciardo and Norris 16th and 17th. Aston Martin still in the pits. Albon has now left the pits and is on his first flying lap. So, Verstappen, in a shocking turn of events, setting the early pace. And what are you expecting, Andrew, from Ferrari this weekend? Because the altitude is what got him in Mexico, broadly speaking, but we're still at some altitude in Sao Paulo, but only similar to Austria where they won.
Yes, so Austria was their last victory and they were absolutely dominant there. But one thing that did happen in Austria was that Carlos Sainz had an engine failure, quite a dramatic one, and that was caused by the same issue that was affecting them in Mexico, or rather what happened in Austria meant that they led to the performance in Mexico. But it's all to do with their turbo. They run a smaller turbo than the other three engines, which has advantages in acceleration, but it's not good at altitude where you need to spin the turbo faster to make up for the loss of altitude, which Ferrari can't do. So add that lack of power from that to not getting their balance quite right as well, and they just sort of were in nowheresville. Just because they were quick in Austria, though, doesn't necessarily mean they'll be quick here, because, of course, although it's the same altitude, things have moved on since then. Red Bull have made a big step forward with their car, and, basically Red Bull haven't been beaten since the French Grand Prix, have they?
But in theory, the issues that plagued them with the power unit specifically in Mexico shouldn't.
No, they should be back to normal, which means competing with Red Bull for pole and then falling backwards in the race and losing to Mercedes, probably. Although maybe not, because Mercedes' problem this weekend is going to be the long straight. George Russell was saying yesterday, because of the dragginess of their car, they're going to lose between 0.3 and 0.5 on the straight, they expect.
Yeah, let's see. I mean, completely shocked that drivers might be putting out excuses before they hit the track, but it's certainly going to be a small disadvantage. I suspect the Mercedes would be able to make up some of that elsewhere. Just riding on board with Lando here, who seems to be circulating okay despite his illness, but he has just gone a little bit wide on the exit of the last corner, taking a fair old chunk of curb, and I'm sure the floor of his McLaren didn't like that.
And just to finish off the point about Ferrari, we've just had the engine change document through from the FIA, and Carlos Sainz has got a new combustion engine this weekend, which is his 5th, which means a 5-place grid penalty for him.
Here's Verstappen's radio.
God, doesn't turn in at all.
Well, he's been complaining about, he's been visibly having understeers since his first corners on the track.
Yeah, so clearly hasn't gone away with a bit of extra temperature in those tyres, because he's now been going for 7 laps or 6 laps now, and that's within the region of being into your peak temperatures and everything being happy. So it's clearly more of a setup issue that he's having there.
A few of you on hashtag BBCF1 and F1 at bbc.co.uk pointing out Brands Hatch was used in the 2012 Paralympic Games, where Alex Zanardi won a gold medal. And good spot from Nathan, and he's absolutely correct. He thinks they did a cycle race or a triathlon. I can't remember which one it was, but Fuji in the Tokyo Olympics. So that's very true also. Great work, gang. As I say, hashtag BBC F1 or f1@bbc.co.uk. 49 minutes and 40 seconds on the clock. We're about to get a lap in from Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari. He's on the hard tyre and running about 1.5 seconds slower than Verstappen. Manages to improve his lap time this time through, but still ends up quite a way adrift. Verstappen then improves behind him, so he's 1.3 seconds off Verstappen on the same tyre, but Bottas is only a tenth off Verstappen on the medium, so there's not a lot of consistency at the moment with some of the lap times up at the front of the field, because Bottas is 9 tenths ahead of Joe, so it's difficult to read too much into it in these early stages. I'm imagining in the second half of the session everyone will stick a set of softs on and do a bit of a qualifying simulation, considering qualifying comes up in 2 hours and it's about 2.5 hours from now, isn't it? 2 hours 40 from now, so that will, I imagine, 3 hours 40, I think, actually. I apologise. Ages. We've got ages till qualifying. Leclerc's done a personal best in Sector 1, but point being, I imagine they'll go out on the softs a little bit later. Just having a look at Sainz having to take fairly evasive action to get around the outside of Lando Norris at Curva de Sol.
There was a big speed difference, wasn't it? And he was trying to use the exit curb to get a little bit more space to go around Lando, and he dropped off the curb where it finished, and big old whack on the floor as he dropped into the grass.
Super dangerous from the McLaren.
Super dangerous is the declaration from Sainz. Kevin Magnussen returns to the pits. He's the first of the drivers to return to the pit lane. Russell is coming out of he's coming in the middle sector now, actually. Leclerc's coming out of the final corner. Sainz is on a good run through Sector 1. He's just set the fastest first sector of anybody, so finding a bit more lap time now. Leclerc goes up to 6th fastest, but Sainz is about 6 tenths quicker than him in the first sector alone, so this is a bit more like it from the Ferrari man. Russell and Hamilton are coming across the line. Russell goes up to 7th, 1.1 seconds slower than Verstappen. He's on the medium tyre, whereas Verstappen's on the hards. Hamilton does not improve. Basically matches his previous best, ends up about 0.05 of a second slower.
We're already seeing one of the traits of this track coming out, which is it's very, very difficult to manage traffic. And we're going to obviously see it later on in qualifying again, but lots of cars on their slow laps, their cool-down laps, trying to stay out of the way, getting on the dirty bits of the track and tripping over each other as they get towards the end of the lap, as well as they all try to find position to set off and start their new lap. Sainz gets up to P4 with that lap, which had that strong first sector. Still a good 4 tenths off of Verstappen in P1 though.
Yeah. Bottas still there in 2nd place, with Perez in 3rd, Sainz in 4th, Ocon in 5th. Joe, Leclerc, Russell, Alonso and Gasly the top 10. Here's Sainz's radio.
Yeah, that I got the reprimands for something worse than that. I mean, a lot less than that.
He's still on he's got a bit of a bee in his bonnet about that blocking from Norris, hasn't he?
He's got to keep himself entertained in these early laps. He's, building up his legal argument, isn't he? Lando was going very, very slowly here. It's a very high-speed part of the track. You would have thought he'd keep a little bit more of an eye on his mirrors there.
Yeah, so Sainz taking evasive action. On the subject of reprimands and stuff, Pierre Gasly has been... he's right on the brink of a race ban if he gets any more penalty points, and the FIA have, I think, said that they're going to change the penalty point system, and Gazzo's kind of saying, well guys, can we change it now so I don't get a race ban, please? So I don't know how successful he's going to be in that, but it does seem I can't really think of much bad stuff. That obviously there was the speeding under a red flag in Suzuka. but nothing else leaps to mind that you think, oh, Gasly deserves a race ban. It's a bit of a strange setup, really.
It just creeps up on you, doesn't it? It's like when you, not that I would have any experience with this, but it's just like when you get caught a few times with a speed gun, or you know, go through a set of red lights or whatever, and now he's in that danger zone where 2 points, you could get 2 points for anything. It could be a completely innocuous 50-50 touch of wheels in the race on Saturday or Sunday, and they might decide it's your fault, and that's it. You race ban, and it's a treacherous place to be in, because you don't want to be driving defensively, because that's also how accidents happen when you're not fully committed. It's a very difficult position to be in.
And presumably you could get it for other kind of non-racing things, or I don't know, like if you missed the weighbridge or something like that.
Well, I mean, some of the things that he's done are quite bad. Like speeding under the red flag conditions, for example, in Japan, and collisions with other drivers. There have been a few of them, not bad ones, but collisions nonetheless. Some of them have not been bad at all, like not staying the required distance behind the safety car. I think that was Singapore, was it? Or was it America?
America, yeah.
And then exceeding track limits, which is just ridiculous to get penalty points for. Unfortunately for Gasly, the FIA have said they're going to review a whole bunch of stuff after the season, but that's after the season. So if he does exceed his 12 or gets to his 12-point level from 10, which he's on now, this year, he's going to get a ban. It's as simple as that. And he's even apparently talked about deliberately doing it so that it doesn't affect him when he moves to Alpine next year. Don't know whether he will. They might give him penalty points for deliberately getting penalty points. Who knows? But
what? So just give someone a cheeky ram tomorrow, get your penalty points, miss Abu Dhabi. Then
I'm not saying he's going to do that, but it's something that's been discussed.
Yeah, early holiday. Yeah. If he's really desperate to finish the season, then why not?
I think the thing is that all the drivers agree that he's not a particularly dangerous driver and he doesn't deserve a race ban. And we should, if we think back to when the penalty point system was introduced, it was post Romain Grosjean first lap nutcase, as Mark Webber called him in 2012.
I'm glad you attributed that quote, because I thought that was just you saying that.
No, that was a Webber doozy, that one. And he did have a series of incidents on the first laps of race where he caused some quite nasty accidents, the worst one of which was the Belgian Grand Prix in 2012 when he collided with Lewis Hamilton, and Hamilton ended up bouncing over Fernando Alonso's Ferrari and nearly taking Alonso's head off, and that's what got Grosjean the ban. And then after that season they brought the penalty point system in, but all the drivers agree that it's not being used in the right way at the moment, and it needs reviewing. And as Russell, who's a GPDA, Grand Prix Drivers Association director, said yesterday, there have been a lot of things this year that need reviewing. It's been something that I'm sure, Jack, you've been in some driver briefings. It's not been a happy atmosphere between the drivers and the FIA officials this year at all. The drivers are not happy with the way the FIA have handled lots of things. So as Russell said, they've got a lot of work to do this winter.
Yeah, I think unfortunately, the last year or so has been a time of reflection, introspection. There's been a lot of scrutiny on the FIA. I wouldn't say that it's been malicious or anything particularly bad, and I think that's recognised by the drivers, but there is a general desire to do things better, and a general agreement that they're not there yet. So one of the things I find interesting about the driver points system is I think in some cases it works very well, and I think it's working well, for example, in the junior formula. So when you look at Formula 3 and Formula 2, there have been a couple of cases of race bans being given out, and I would say deservedly so, and it's worked for its intended purpose. I think where it's maybe falling down in F1 is, as you say, getting points for track limits for Gasly. It's a little bit silly. It's not something that's really harming anybody. Yeah, you get penalised for it, or you get your laps deleted in qualifying, but do you really deserve to be pushed along towards a race ban for that? I don't think so.
Maybe that's the way to solve track limits. Exceed track limits, race ban.
Insta race ban.
Yeah, exactly.
It would be effective.
Yeah.
That's true.
40 minutes and 45 seconds to go. Lando Norris is the sound you can hear coming up over the hill and towards the line. Verstappen has returned to the pit lane now. He did a 13.5, so he managed to find another tenth of a second to move 2 tenths clear of Bottas in second, 4 tenths clear of Perez in third, and Hamilton in fourth. Half a second ahead of Sainz in fifth. Yeah, I've just remembered, I never told the end of that Sainz story, did I? I said he's got the fastest first sector of anyone and then never covered off his lap time, so apologies for that. He's in 5th, Leclerc in 6th, Russell 7th, Ocon 8th, 9th for Joe, 10th for Alonso. Leclerc and Stroll have just been having a bit of messing around.
What the hell is doing Stroll?
Yeah, copy. You've seen that.
This is exactly the kind of jockeying for position that I was talking about earlier. For such a short lap with 20 cars, it's quite a challenge to get your own piece of space. You know, ideally, you want to be 4 to 5 seconds behind the car in front of you to avoid the aerodynamics of your car being compromised. And Charles was just harrying the back of Stroll's car there, trying to find a way through. And Stroll was being pretty punchy with his defence, which, you know, if they're both on their outlap, he's entitled to do.
So Vettel now returns to the pit lane in the Aston Martin. Rachel says that the road race finished at the Fuji Speedway and the time trial used the course for the start and the end of the event at Tokyo 2020. So thank you very much for that, Rachel. I think I commentated on one of them, but I can't remember which one it was. I think it was the one that started there, the time trial. Well, I didn't commentate, I introduced the show, so I didn't need to know anything about it. But
I think I'm right in saying that in the women's road race, it was won by a mathematician who's not signed up for any pro team or anything. It's a completely unexpected winner.
Yeah.
And it happened pretty much because the rest of the field forgot that she was up the road. Out of sight, out of mind.
Really?
Yeah, the second place woman came across the line and
thought they'd won.
They thought they'd won. It was pretty gutting to watch, yeah.
Oh, that's
miscommunication.
Painful.
Yeah.
There was no, that's too niche. I'm not going to talk about that one. I was about to tell you about...
It's not FP2, steady.
No, I was going to tell you about Fanatec GT World Challenge Asia, powered by AWS.
I mean, well, this is right up my street these days,
exactly.
Jack. Lay it on me.
But it was a race at... I'm not going to remember the details. I think it was a race at Sugo, and the gentleman driver was in for the second stint, thought he was going to win it, so was just chilling on the final lap because he had 20-second advantage, comes over the crest of the hill and slows down to celebrate, full Bjorn Verdheim at Monaco spec, and he finished 3rd. Everyone just blasted past him on the line.
Oh, no.
Very awkward. Everybody's in the pits now, bar Yuki Tsunoda and Nicholas Latifi, so I'll give you the full order. Verstappen, Bottas, Perez, Hamilton, Sainz, the top 5. Leclerc, Russell, Ocon, Joe, Alonso, the top 10. Vettel, Gasly, Magnussen, Norris, Ricciardo, the top 15. Albon, Tsunoda, Stroll, Schumacher and Latifi, the 20 drivers. As I say, everybody back in the pits, bar Latifi, who's just doing an outlap now, but on his same set of tyres on the mediums. Tsunoda has now returned to the pit lane, so it's quieting down a little bit. I have a question here from someone. Where's it gone? Rico says, I've looked everywhere and I can't find an answer. Why do Mercedes have a sawtooth windscreen? I think the Mercedes have different windscreens. I'm sure one is the jaggedy one, or certainly with Hamilton and Bottas, I'm sure they were different. What's that about?
I think they've always had that, or always, for several years now, they've sported that design, haven't they? I can impart no technical wisdom on you for that one, but all I will say is that there is a team in Formula 2 that have copied it, which is, I think, Dams. And I've always looked at it and just wondered and thought, surely in the intricacies of the black art that is aerodynamics, just looking at the world champions and thinking, they've cut triangles in their visor. Why not? Let's do it. Yeah. I mean, worth a punt, maybe? I have no idea. Someone did suggest to me once it was to do with the turbulence that you can get, or the lifting that you can get on a helmet. You can sometimes, in certain situations, get air coming up and trying to basically rip the helmet off of the driver's head as it gets under the chin, and that's pretty unpleasant, as you might imagine. Someone told me it was to do with that, but
yeah, I believe that is true also, and that it's driver preference whether you have the jaggedy one or the flat one, but could be incorrect. Isaac says they don't allow radios in Olympic cycling. So I guess maybe they do in Tour de France and stuff.
Yes.
So they don't in Olympic cycling. So no one knew and forgot she was ahead. So apparently that's quite a controversial rule in cycling, says Isaac. There we go. 35.5 minutes to go. Sergio Perez heading out on his soft tyres, and he's cracking straight on with it now, coming out of the final couple of corners and across the line. And Perez is going to give us our first run on the soft tyre, down towards the Senna S, hits the brakes and then drops down into the left-hander, then flicks it right and then left again through Curva do Sol and out onto the back straight, pings open the DRS and does the fastest first sector of anybody, over a tenth up on Max Verstappen's previous best time. Neat and tidy through Descida do Lago. Now he comes up towards the quick double right-hander at Ferradura and Laranjinha, and then into the slower, tighter, twistier part of the circuit, starting off with the tight right-hander at turn 8, down through Pinheirinho, the long left-hander at turn 9, up to Bico de Pato, one of the slowest corners on the circuit at turn 10, and then he's out through Mergullo and up towards Junsao, and just like that, the lap is pretty much nearly over. Comes through the middle sector and he's 1.2 seconds up on Verstappen, so soft tyres giving Perez an awful lot of lap time in the middle third of the lap. And the first benchmark time we're going to see from a front runner from Sergio Perez is a 1 minute 11.853, so he goes 1.7 seconds quicker than Max Verstappen. Very, very early run there from Perez. Nobody else is even on a, well,
Mick Schumacher.
Schumacher and Magnussen have just left the pits, but they're on a set of medium tyres.
I mean, Mick Schumacher, looking at the mini sectors, micro sectors, and he does have a couple of purples in there in sector 2, going even quicker than Perez. And I do wonder if when we start to see some of the other big guns coming out, that time will be pretty quickly eclipsed.
So Schumacher goes second fastest on the mediums, 1.5 seconds back from Sergio Perez. So, as you say, you would perhaps expect that... did he do track limits there as well?
Yeah, get the
Perez?
Microscope out, FIA.
Yeah.
I think that was 0.5 millimetre off.
Well, they tend to ignore them now in practice, don't they? So it'll only be qualifying where the lap times actually get deleted. Interesting that Haas have gone out on the medium tyres. They did hard tyres for the first half of the session, and they've now gone on to a set of mediums. So can't quite work out what the theory would be there, unless they're just trying to save a set of softs. But qualifying, you're going to want to use up the softs. So we'll see what happens as the session progresses. Still only Perez, Schumacher, and Magnussen that have set lap times at the moment, as Magnussen comes through the middle sector. That are out on circuit, I should say. Magnussen's first sector is 3 tenths away from Perez. As he comes through the middle sector now, he is 9 tenths away from Sergio Perez, and now gets on the power out of Junsao. Will lose a bit of time, I'd have thought, through that final sector, considering the straight line speed of the Red Bull. Comes across the line, and Magnussen goes second fastest, 1.3 seconds back from Perez, 2 tenths quicker than his teammate Mick Schumacher. So yeah, I think that, I'm interested to see what happens with that Perez lap time.
I think what we're seeing is just I'm still not sure why they sent Perez out so early, because he's now gone out, finished his run and boxed, and all the meanwhile Max has just been sitting in the box. Indeed, everyone else has, although Max is now heading out for his own run. Everyone is just waiting for the track to rubber up to get cleaned a little bit, because with such limited time before qualifying, you want to get your eye in on the track that is going to be closest to what you'll qualify on, i.e. with the most rubber down. And the more that they wait, the more cars are laying down that rubber, and the better the conditions will be for their qualifying simulation.
John says they don't allow radio in World Championships cycling either, and it makes for a much better race. So maybe it's just the tours that are allowed radios, I don't know. No huge cycling experts in the booth here. Andrew Benz has just been mortally offended that I said that.
They definitely have radios in the tours, that's for sure.
Yeah, but not in the World Championships.
I think I do actually watch a fair bit of cycling. I think they have their radios all the time, except for the Olympics and I guess the World Championships as well.
Right, Verstappen is over a tenth up on Perez through the first sector, and he's much more neat and tidy through Descida do Lago. And as a result, He is going quicker than Perez around the lap so far. Hamilton's just left the pits, and I think he's still on the same set of medium tyres that he was on in the first half of the session. So Mercedes doing things a little differently, because that's the thing with the Haas times. They've gone out on lower fuel. It's not like they've gone out on heavy fuel loads because they've found a load of time, but just running the mediums instead of the softs. Here comes Verstappen through the middle sector now, and he's only 600ths up on Sergio Perez. Gets on the power out of the final corner. He was slower than Perez through the middle sector by almost 1/10 of a second, and now comes out across the line, and Verstappen does not go quicker than his teammate. The gap is 0.08 of a second, but Perez ahead of Verstappen in the Red Bull. So that's a decent lap from the Mexican.
Yeah, I take my words back. Sorry, Checo. Not as bad a lap as we thought. We'll see. It'd be interesting to see if they attempt another lap here, or if that's going to be the soft cooked and done with. It is relatively hard for such a short lap on the tyres here at Sao Paulo. It's there's quite a lot packed into the lap, isn't there? Even though it's a short one, you're always coming back on yourself, especially in the middle sector. You're never given a moment to breathe, and indeed your tyres as well.
It still doesn't turn. It's just waiting for the front.
So Verstappen still struggling with understeer, waiting for the front the whole time, which was a characteristic of the car. Well, and you know what? Understeery car, Perez ahead of Verstappen.
That's exactly what I was about to say. Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. It's just like in the beginning of the season when there was not that much to choose between them, over one lap anyway. Perez doesn't mind a bit of understeer. Verstappen hates it.
Hamilton didn't look non-understeery coming through Pico de Pato. Looked a little bit unpleasant, and well, he is 1.4 seconds down after the middle sector, so maybe still some higher fuel running from Mercedes here as Hamilton comes out and across the line. Won the Grand Prix last season in Brazil, did Hamilton, and he goes up to 5th place, 1.9 seconds back from Sergio Perez. So still not representative times from Mercedes. Generally speaking, it feels like they've run heavier in the first half of free practice ones over the course of the season so far, and that appears to still be the case. Bottas has gone out on a set of soft tyres. He's coming through Junsao, comes across the line now, and he goes a second slower than Perez and Verstappen on the soft tyres. So Perez quickest, Verstappen second, 0.08 between them, then a second back to Bottas. Joe, Albon and Latifi are the only other drivers to have left the pits on a set of soft tyres. So I think everybody else, by the looks of things, Ferrari have done the same. They've gone out on the mediums with Charles Leclerc, brand new set of mediums, because Mercedes are out on their old mediums that they ran throughout the first half of the session. But there's Alonso, Vettel, Gasly, all going out on brand new medium tyres. So that's quite interesting.
A lot of different approaches to the session and the limited amount of running that they've got here. And we're just watching Leclerc now as he's come through the first sector on those sort of mediums, and he has gone personal best, but still 2/10 down from Perez, looking quite squirrely on the exit of the high-speed stuff. Coming up on an Alpine now as he gets into the very technical second sector, using a lot of curve to try and rotate the car through turn 9. Lots of cars on their outlap here, but he's dodging them fairly effectively.
Albon goes up to 5th quickest, 1.1 seconds slower than Sergio Perez, so that's not a bad lap for the Williams man, although he's only 0.2 quicker than Magnussen in the Haas, who is on the medium tyre. Leclerc's Ferrari looking pretty lively as he comes out of Junsao, out across the line, and where's this going to put him? He goes up to 3rd quickest, only half a second away from Perez and Verstappen on a medium tyre as opposed to the Red Bull soft. So I would declare that mildly encouraging.
Certainly, yeah, whereas, as you say, Mercedes pounding around on that same set of mediums and seemingly still focused on the race setup. Ferrari going in a different direction, using the mediums for their quality simulation. I still can't quite work out why that would be, as opposed to the soft, unless... Are they really shortchanged on the soft this weekend? Well,
actually, it's different, isn't it? Because it's a sprint weekend, you're kind of using the tyres differently. There's no FP, there's one fewer practice session. So maybe those who are going out on the mediums will also be going out on the softs and using 3 sets in the in FP1. Perhaps that's what we're seeing, whereas some are deciding to... Normally in a free practice one, you use 2 sets of tyres, is my point. But perhaps on a sprint weekend, we tend to see them run 3 sets of tyres, but they don't want to go soft. They'd rather get rid of a medium and keep some of the softs in the bank, potentially. 25 minutes and 10 seconds to go. Bottas is improving on this lap, and he goes back up into 4th place, gets ahead of Alonso, who had gone 5th quickest on the medium tyres. So I would, by that sort of theory, I'd expect in the next 25 minutes, everyone will go out on another new set of tyres, and that'll mostly be on the softs, would be my suspicion. Russell on the mediums, and he's coming through the first sector. The thing is, Russell is on the same set of mediums that he's been on the whole day. He's backed off now at Desida de Lago. The same is true of Hamilton, so they haven't actually gone on to a second set of tyres yet, with 24.5 minutes to go. And it's Red Bull 1 and 2 at the moment, but they're the only ones of the front runners to have been out on the soft tyre. Perez is going again, coming into the Desida de Lago. We're just getting a replay of Kevin Magnussen up at turn 6 and 7. And then onto the brakes into turn 8, and big lock-up on the right front as he tried to turn in from the curb.
Yeah, you could almost see the curb pulling the car in, and just it's not level to the track, is it? A lot of the curbs here actually dip away from the track, and because they're falling away with almost an adverse camber, it's pulling the car in the wrong direction as you're trying to turn in. A big smoky lockup. Now on board with Verstappen. He's still on the soft.
Which corners in particular, Max, were the worst at this stage?
Everywhere except 6-7. It just really doesn't turn everywhere.
So he's okay with that high-speed double right-hander, but everything else really struggling with understeer at the moment, Verstappen. And so, he's back in the pits. Well, he's just come through the pits, so maybe a couple of twists on the front wing.
Yeah, could have been a quick change just to get him back out there, maximise track time. But the thing that the engineer would have been looking for there when asking where on the track are you struggling with that issue is trying to discern if it's more of an aero issue, problem with their aero balance and the wing balance that they have on the car, or if it's more of a mechanical balance to do with the stiffness that they've got set up there. And yeah, Max, as you say, pretty happy in the high-speed stuff, it sounds like. So he'll head back out and do a quick evaluation, and then he'll have time to do one more proper run, as you say, at the end of the session.
22 minutes and 35 seconds to go. Joe is improving at the moment as he comes through the middle sector. Vettel jumps up to 9th fastest on his medium tyres, a newish set of mediums. They've got about 5 laps on them. Charles Leclerc is finishing an outlap now on the mediums and coming down towards the Senna S. So we'll see what Leclerc does on this lap. As I say, he's out on a new set, a young set of medium tyres, let's call it. His second lap on those, again fighting it through the Senna S, through Curva de Sol and down the back straight. Car was very lively in Mexico as well for the Ferrari team. Ended up in the barriers and does a personal best in sector 1 here.
Yeah, certainly looks like they're still focusing on the low fuel stuff. Car moving around quite a lot there, but he's managing to keep it on the straight and narrow, coming through the long double right of turn 6 and 7. Slow cars everywhere, as seems to be standard at the moment, and fighting his way through the tight and twisty sections where you have to be so patient with the throttle. So much power in these cars and so little grip on the surface that you really have to squeeze onto it nice and slowly, but manages to navigate that section, plunges down the hill towards Junsao. He's purple in sector 2 actually. It's a very strong section of the lap there, and a decent exit, a little bit of oversteer as he comes up the hill. We'll see where it puts him.
His teammate Carlos Sainz has got ahead of him by 0.3 of a second, but Leclerc is going to come back at him. Still remains 4th quickest though. Didn't really improve in the final sector, so half a second away, but Leclerc has the fastest middle sector of anyone. So Perez quickest, still 0.8 of a second ahead of Verstappen. Sainz and Leclerc, the Ferrari drivers, in 3rd and 4th, 0.2 and 0.4 away respectively. Bottas is still there in 5th. He's closed the gap actually to 0.8 of a second. Verstappen is on a lap here. His first sector is about 1/10 away from what he's managed previously. Now drops down through Megulo through the middle sector split, and he's only 800ths away. Now gets on the power out of the final corner. This is his second run on these soft tyres for Max Verstappen. Comes out and across the line. Not expecting him to go to the top of the times, but he loses a couple of tenths actually in that final sector. So perhaps an improvement for Verstappen. Only he and the team will know that, to be honest.
Could easily have turned down the engine a touch since that more quali-focused run, but seems to be getting on well with that change that they've made. If he's only, less than a tenth away from his previous best in the first two sectors, which is really the meat of the lap here, so I dare say he's feeling a little bit happier in that car now.
Valtteri Bottas across the line doesn't improve, goes a second slower than Perez, and only a tenth slower than he had managed previously. So again, those soft tyres are hanging on for a couple of laps, maybe not with quite the ultimate pace that they initially had, but they're not falling away too dramatically. Perez still quickest. Sainz is on another push lap on the mediums. The Mercedes are in the pit lane. Latifi is on a lap now, coming through the middle sector. He's up in 15th place at the moment, Nicholas Latifi. And the McLarens are still running around on the same set of hard tyres that they've been on for the whole day so far. Just getting a replay of Fernando Alonso coming out of Junsao and having a little bit of a slide before getting on the power up the hill, or while getting on the power up the hill. Nicely done. Not quite as fun as his one in Singapore a few weeks ago, but a slide nevertheless.
A little baby slide for Fernando,
exactly.
Wasn't it?
Hamilton's radio.
Feels like the rear is just floating around and no grip, particularly on the rear.
No rear grip for Hamilton. Back in the pit lane, he and George Russell. 18 minutes and 24 seconds on the clock. Tsunoda coming down into turn one now on the medium tyres still. Nobody's out on a fresh set of tyres just yet. Still Perez and Verstappen 1 and 2.
Tsunoda's someone that's going to be interesting to watch next year, isn't he, with the arrival of De Vries. He's going to have quite a challenge on his hands, I think, because you're in that horrible situation of the guy who is the reference and the benchmark, and he's performed well this year, but still, letting the odd mistakes creep in here and there. And he's going to have to step up his game if he's going to remain or set himself out as the favourite in that team next year.
Do you think it'll be difficult to work out where AlphaTauri are next year with comparing a De Vries and a Tsunoda? Because, like you say, Tsunoda is arguably still a bit of an unknown quantity. He's done sort of fine or well enough against Gasly this season, but him up against De Vries, it's going to be difficult to know if you're always getting the same, performance out each time.
I think that he's now, he's been around for a couple of years. So he jumps up to 12th of that time, 1.5 seconds off the pace. He's been around long enough that they probably have a good feeling of where he is, and we're starting to get a feeling of that as well. And, although Nick is a rookie, he's got quite a long career already at a high level of motorsport. I think people are expecting him to jump in and be comfortable pretty much straight away. So I think it's going to be much more about the comparison between the two rather than trying to judge where AlphaTauri fall out in the midfield battle. And it's going to be a tough fight.
Tsunoda, as you say, going up into 12th place that time through. Perez quickest, Verstappen second. The Ferrari's still running around on those medium tyres. Sainz did a cool down lap on that last lap, whereas Leclerc did another push lap, and as a result, I don't think it was a push lap from Leclerc, because it was almost over a second and a half slower. Looks as though they are making some adjustments to Hamilton's rear wing to try and cure that floaty rear end issue by the looks of things, as he remains in the pit lane. Lance Stroll's just gone very wide down at turn 4, and now we're seeing him come into the pit lane.
Something wrong with the car.
No, this is not good.
There is a problem.
Yeah, copy that, Lance. So we're boxing this lap, box this lap.
I was going to say, at the start of that replay, the car looked, damping-wise, it looked horrible. It was almost bouncing its way into the corner, and it's not a bumpy entry. Yeah, so maybe something awry with the suspension there.
Well, we'll see whether Stroll gets out at all in the remainder of the session. Perez has just left the pits on his same set of soft tyres that he did his lap on earlier on. As I say, the Ferrari's still out there. Schumacher is improving on this lap, as is Magnussen, so they have used 3 sets of tyres. They've both now gone out on the soft tyres, so this will be a bit more representative for the Haas drivers as Schumacher comes down through Magulo. He's the furthest around the circuit for Haas, and he's only a quarter of a second down on Perez after the second sector, so this will be a reasonable lap here from Schumacher. Could put him up into 5th place, but obviously track evolution very high. Here he comes across the line, and it is 4th. Goes quicker than Charles Leclerc, I think, Schumacher, so that's a reasonable lap.
Yep, that's the track evolution in action, isn't it? I mean, good lap from Mick, but I'm sure once we see these final runs coming around, everyone's going to be making steps forward, and Perez just on his way out of the pits now, on his out lap, so we'll see how much he can improve from his previous benchmark.
Not sure how many race events they have at Interlagos.
They do have a fair few national events. I always see something pounding around there. Sometimes they're pretty chaotic races. But yeah, on board with Russell while Mr. Nichols does his investigative digging.
Yeah, there is quite a lot. Yeah. Porsches, GTs, superbikes, festivals, whatever that is. There's obviously the Brazilian stock car series as well, and the trucks. The Brazilian trucks are always good. The 500 kilometers of Interlagos, not sure what race is in that. Mercedes Challenge, plenty of racing. Brazilian GT champion Ricardo Rosset, wasn't he? I think after he left F1 he went back to Brazil and won the Brazilian GT3 title.
Your knowledge surpasses mine. Still trying to catch up on my GT history.
13, that's more Ricardo Rosset history than GT history. Yeah. What a man. Ben, you covered Rosset, didn't you, in F3000?
Formula 3 and Formula 3000. Yeah, really? He looked perfectly competent in both of those. In fact, he was at Supernova in Formula 3000 with Vincenzo Sospiri. Yeah. And they were sort of pretty evenly matched. Sospiri ended up winning the championship. He had about 700 years of experience in Formula 3000 by then. I don't know what happened to Vincenzo Sospiri, by the way, but do you know?
Well, there is a team that runs in GT circles called Sospiri Racing.
Must be him.
Must be the same.
Yeah, and then Rosset got to Formula 1 with Tyrrell, and he just looked completely and utterly out of his depth. And famously, and rather cruelly, the Tyrrell mechanics ran out of patience with him one race, and they inverted the first and last letters of his name on the car.
What, Ricardo?
Of his second name.
Oh, right. Crikey. Sospiri was unable to raise the funds to join Simtech in '94, won the F3000 title in '95, Benetton reserve driver. Then he was part of the MasterCard Lola project and failed to qualify, and then they withdrew. And he went to...
Failed to qualify by 11 seconds in Melbourne in 1996, I think it was. That was one of the most remarkable things I've ever seen in my career, I think, that one.
He's clearly doing something. I mean, assuming that Sospiri Racing is indeed his team, he's clearly doing some things right, because they run Lamborghinis, and they are the finest GT cars out there, if I may say so myself. Not biased at all, of course.
He is now the team manager for Vincenzo Sospiri Racing.
There you go.
He was in the lead Toyota at the 1999 24 Hours of Le Mans with Emmanuel Collard and Martin Brundle. They were a trio.
That's quite a lineup.
Yeah, did the Indy 500. Qualified 3rd for the Indy 500 in 1997.
You sure there weren't extenuating circumstances around the 11-second gap to pre-qualifying?
The car was rubbish, and it hadn't seen a wind tunnel when they designed it. Was the main extenuating circumstance.
That's what I would call. Yeah, that sounds about right.
He was on the front row of the '97 Indy 500 with Arie Luyendyk and Tony Stewart. But I think that was that the days when IndyCar wasn't with the IRL. I think that might have been sort of the split era, where maybe it wasn't the best caliber drivers out there. Right, lap times coming in now, or rather cars going out now on new sets of soft tyres. So Perez and Verstappen have gone out on the same set of softs, but Russell has put on a new set of soft tyres and has gone 4th fastest, 0.3 slower than Perez. Now that's only a 10th quicker than Mick Schumacher, so I'm not 100% sure on that tyre for Russell. He's on an outlap now.
That was on his previous run with the mediums.
That was on the mediums.
Yes.
Okay, fine, because that didn't really make any sense. Fine. So Hamilton on the softs now. Brand new set of softs coming into turn 1 at the Center S, and went in pretty deep, I would suggest. And now he comes through Curva do Sol and through the first sector. And how is his first sector compared to Sergio Perez? The answer is he's up by 100th, but he's slower than Verstappen has managed in Sector 1. So Hamilton pushing on. Magnussen about to come through on his set of softs. And his teammate Mick Schumacher 6th quickest at the moment. And Magnussen only goes up to 12th place.
Ooh, big lock-up from Hamilton.
And he's straight on.
In the same place that we saw Magnussen earlier, putting a wheel on the exit curve of turn 7 and trying to turn in from that curve, and he just got a big smoky lock-up from the outside wheel on that curve. Russell's still going with his lap, though.
Yep, he's on the soft tyres as he now comes down the hill through Megullo. No personal best in Sector 1. After the middle sector, he's 7 thousandths up on Perez, but this is the part of the circuit that Russell claimed they're going to lose 3 to 5 tenths of a second. So we'll see when he comes across the line just how dramatic the deficit is. He comes across the line now, and he's 2 tenths down on Sergio Perez. But again, track evolution-wise, he's only a 10th quicker, or a couple of tenths quicker than Mick Schumacher, and only a 10th quicker than Sebastian Vettel, who's just done a lap on the soft. So I still think we're not really seeing the clear picture here.
Just going on board with Lewis now. He exits turn 7 with a load of speed and just drops into... Looks like there's almost a little bit of a gully in that exit curve, and you can hear the bottom of the car scraping along. And as soon as he touched the brakes, the front wheels just locked up, and that was kind of it. It's game over from there. It's such a short braking zone. You don't have the time to recover.
I wonder if that'll be game over for his session now, Hamilton, potentially, or whether he'll go and try and do another lap. But he had gave it a couple of goes at flat spotting it, didn't he? I think he might have 2 on there.
Yeah, they'll be pretty small flat spots. He managed to get off the brake after not too long, so would have thought he'll try again. Big snap of oversteer coming out of the last corner for Gasly, who's also on the soft trying to set a time, and that won't have helped his final sector.
Perez and Verstappen both out on the same set of softs that they were on previously. Sainz still in the pits, as is Charles Leclerc. So the order is Perez, Verstappen, Russell, Sainz, Vettel, the top 5. Schumacher, Leclerc, Gasly, Albon, Bottas, the top 10. Alonso, Magnussen, Stroll, Zhou and Tsunoda, the top 15. Then Latifi, Hamilton, Ocon, Norris and Ricciardo. McLaren still in the pits, having only done running on the hard tyre, but I would expect them to stick a set of mediums on, a set of softs on pretty soon, to be honest. We've only got less than 7 minutes to go. Bottas jumps up into 8th place, and Sainz has just left the pits now. So Carlos Sainz has just left the pits, and we'll see what tyres he is on. I would hypothesise a set of softs, but we'll wait and see. 6.5 minutes to go, and that Albon lap time, in fact Albon's just improved and gone up to 10th quickest, just a fraction slower than Gasly. Alonso's back out but on the medium tyre, as is Esteban Ocon also. So Alpine haven't run the softs at all during this qualifying session. Still waiting to see what Sainz is on. Ocon coming into the final corner now at Junsao and out across the line. Alonso has done a personal best in the middle sector and is about half a second away from Sergio Perez. Here they come now, the 2 Alpine drivers, and Ocon jumps up into 11th place, and Fernando Alonso comes through and jumps up into 10th. So then Ocon gets shuffled down to 12th spot, 7 tenths of a second away from Sergio Perez's best time. Still Sainz across the line. Okay, so he's on a new set of softs. So new set of softs for Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari. Leclerc also on a new set of softs. So we'll get a lap time view now from the Ferraris, but it will be a bit or quite offset by about, must have been half an hour ago that Perez set that lap time. So track evolution will be quite different.
Yeah, we'll be in favour of the Ferraris, obviously. So I don't think they will pay too much attention, or they'll at least try to set a bit of an offset to those gaps. This is Tsunoda.
Just starting a road is so.
He has a way with words, doesn't he, Yuki?
His English is getting better. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah. No, just to finish on the Ferraris, they'll more be interested in checking out the balance of that car with a nice fresh set of softs, low fuel before quali, rather than looking too deeply at the gaps to the other teams, which you'll always be tempted to do. But yeah, this is really for them to dial in the car at the best possible moment for the track.
First sector for Leclerc. He's 400s down on Sergio Perez through the left-hander of Decido del Lago. Now heading up to Ferradura. Robert says Vincenzo Sospiri was the first Formula Ford driver to lap Mallory Park at over 100 miles an hour. That's quick around Mallory.
In feet, yeah. Bloody hell.
With the what's the hairpin called? Is it just
Devil's
called the
Elbow?
Hairpin? Devil's Elbow is that last corner, isn't it? That's the downhill left.
It's the downhill one.
Can't remember if the hairpin's got a name. But anyway, good effort, Vincenzo Sospiri. I just actually had a book through the history of the Formula Ford Festival that Ben Evans has written and sent me a copy, so I'm looking forward to getting stuck into that. Hopefully there'll be lots of Vincenzo Sospiri in it. Leclerc's very quick in the middle sector. Here he comes towards the line now, and he's almost 3/10 up after the middle sector, cuts the timing beam, and he does go quick. No, he goes second quickest. Ooh. Slower by 4 thousandths of a second compared to Sergio Perez. So the top three separated by 8 thousandths. What is Carlos Sainz up to? He went fourth quickest in all of that, less than 2 tenths away. So Perez, Leclerc, Verstappen separated by 8 thousandths, and then it's a couple of tenths back to Sainz. Sainz is only 1 thousandth ahead of Lewis Hamilton, and the top 6 are all separated by 2 tenths of a second. Andrew Benson.
They're losing so much time up that straight, the Ferraris. Now, I don't know whether that's just an example of the Red Bull being so slippery, which it is, or Ferrari have got their engine turned down for this session, which is highly possible. But to be that far up and then not beat the time just on one straight, basically, is that's huge.
You would think the engine turned down would be especially at a play, because was it Austria? We spoke that they were all right in Austria, but didn't Sainz's turbo went in Austria, didn't it, because of this? So that maybe they're being extra cautious potentially.
It would make sense, you know. There's nothing to gain by being too ambitious now with the settings, so I could well imagine that they've got something in reserve for qualifying.
2 minutes and 20 seconds remaining. The order then is Perez, Leclerc, Verstappen, Sainz, Hamilton, the top 5. Russell, Vettel, Schumacher, Bottas and Gasly, the top 10. Top 8 covered by less than half a second. Alonso's in 11th, Albon is 12th, 13th is Ocon, 14th is Stroll, 15th is Norris. So they've gone out on a set of mediums of McLaren at the end here. So no soft running for McLaren at all. They and Alpine both doing that. So both McLaren and Alpine, who are of course involved in that squabble over 4th in the Constructors' Championship, just 7 points between them. But they've both decided on not using the soft tyre at all in this session.
And I've just got to give another shout out to Vettel. I mean, in the twilight of his career, so he would have us believe, it just seems to have stepped up a level, because he's only 3 tenths off, bearing in mind what we've said about the Ferraris possibly being a bit turned down. But I mean, that's a stellar performance in the Aston. You know, his teammate Stroll, who's been doing pretty well lately, is much further down the order, 1 second off in 14th. So that's a really good lap from Seb.
Leclerc's on another push lap. He's on a personal best in sector 1. His middle sector is about 1/10 of a second away, though. But we'll see whether he can do a quicker final sector, or whether it is just that is how the Ferrari are doing in the final sector. You're right about it. Vettel, it's been nice to watch Vettel a bit more back on it towards the latter half of this season. Leclerc across the line does an 11.878, so pretty much matches his previous best. Did a personal best in the first two sectors, the first and the third sector, but the middle sector lost a bit of time, which is where you need the tyre. Shaw's hairpin, thank you Rico, that's the name of the hairpin at Mallory Park. 18 seconds left on the clock, but yeah, that's again another reasonable lap time incoming there from Charles Leclerc, even though it's not quite as quick as Perez. Vettel across the line, 7th quickest, doesn't improve on that lap, 6/10 slower than he'd managed previously.
We've still got cars heading out on track, and the primary reason for that will be there is a grid practice start at the end of the session, isn't there? Because it's a bit of an awkward pit exit, so not too easy to organise practice starts at the end of pit lane as you would normally have at a circuit. So everyone's out on track, just circulating to take the checkered flag and line up on the grid for a proper practice start at the end of the session.
So checkered flag is out. Sergio Perez is looking like he's going to end the session quickest. Sainz is on a push lap though. He's just done a personal best in the middle sector, coming out of Junsao now and out across the line. Will there be an improvement? No, he's a couple of tenths slower than he managed previously. So it is Sergio Perez in the Red Bull who ends the session fastest. Charles Leclerc second in the Ferrari, third Max Verstappen in the Red Bull, fourth for Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari, fifth and sixth Hamilton and Russell, Vettel, Schumacher, Bottas, Gasly, the rest of the top 10, and then Fernando Alonso in 11th, Albon in 12th, Ocon 13th, 14th for Stroll, 15th for Norris, Magnussen, Latifi, Joe, Tsunoda and Ricciardo, the 20 drivers. So looks close between Red Bull and Ferrari, that's for sure. They just did their laps at such different times in the session though.
Yeah, a few caveats to that result list, isn't there? I think we'd expect a little bit more from Ferrari, both perhaps in what they have in terms of engine power and, maybe still dialing their way into it, whereas Perez seems to have hit the ground running. Enforced by the fact that he did that time relatively so early in the session. So definitely a few tenths of track evolution for him to gain there.
And yeah, Verstappen not really happy since his first outlap, really. We didn't hear a message saying, oh yeah, it's all better now, so perhaps he's still struggling with it, but we saw them, or we think they changed the front wing, so maybe that is solved, but he never kind of found any lap time later on. Yeah,
we'll see if anything comes out after the session, if he feels that they really addressed that or not, but he did pretty much match his best lap time going out again on that soft after they've made the change. Here's Leclerc.
I've got something in my brake duct, the rear left brake duct.
So Leclerc saying he's got something in his rear left brake duct. Not quite sure how he can. Oh, you can see it in the mirror. It's a bit of.
Looks like a tear off or a plastic bag or something, doesn't it?
Yeah, just flapping around, sort of on the suspension almost of that rear left as he comes down to do his practice start. And the Haas, Mick Schumacher in particular, looking pretty impressive in that session at a time that he needs to look impressive, because Haas say they're making their decision, this week basically, about who's going to be in that car next year.
Yeah, that decision's been looming over that car for a good few weeks now, and it's kind of, the pendulum's been swinging, at least according to the press, one way or the other between Hülkenberg and Schumacher. And he's doing a good job under a lot of pressure to get the performances in there. So obviously doesn't count for anything right now. Qualifying up later today, and then two races this weekend will be his chance to prove that he deserves that seat.
Absolutely. Andrew Benson, what will the headline be on the BBC Sport website?
No idea.
What do you
Perez
make of
heads
it?
Leclerc in Sao Paulo GP practice would be my wild stab in the dark.
Snappy. And what did you make of the set? Is it as close as it appears to be?
No, I don't think so. I think Red Bull have got a bit of an edge. That will be my impression from that session, although there's so much uncertainty, particularly the Ferrari engine mode, for example. Mercedes, I think, doesn't look too bad for them. A couple of tenths off, considering they didn't expect this would be as strong for them as Mexico. That's reasonably encouraging. But I think it will be a fool's errand to make any predictions based on 1 hour of practice.
Well, this is the thing with the sprint. We go straight into qualifying now. Looking forward to it?
Very much so.
Great news. So join us in 2.5 hours' time, where we will be getting underway with qualifying. You can hear it wherever you're listening now, and I think we're in for a very interesting session. Max Verstappen a little bit on the back foot coming into the Sao Paulo Grand Prix after that first practice, but the top 5 cars, Perez, Leclerc, Verstappen, Sainz, Hamilton, all separated by less than 0.2 of a second. So we'll speak to you in 2.5 hours for qualifying. This has been an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live. Sergio Perez, quickest at the end of FP1.